Good morning, afternoon, good evening. Today is August 27th here in the United States, and Josh Bottom here starting the Kubeflow community call. Again, August 27th, 2024. We're going to walk through the agenda items that we have here and glad to add any in as we go. And I just want to remind folks that this meeting is being recorded and it is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct. So we are going to start with our release updates. And perhaps Ricardo, hopefully you can give us another release update. I know you've been doing a great job up until now, hopefully getting close to the end of your tenure of having to provide these updates, but you've been doing such a good job, you get more. How's it coming?
Hey Josh, uh, thanks. Um, and let me just apologize in advance because I'm doing some rearrangements here and there'll be a lot of noises. Um, well, let's go with the release updates. We're still in touch with the working groups. They are looking for adding some bug fixes for their own components. I'm talking specifically to platform working groups that covers the security, manifests, and pipelines, and notebooks. So those are the working groups that are planning to um, raise some version bumps in their components so we can create 191 timeline to release 191 still to be defined whenever we have some concrete planning from the working groups to get their work done. So stay tuned for any updates. For 110, I think I've been doing in the past 2 or 3 meetings here. Now with 19, our Kubeflow is done. We're now working on forming the new release team to release the Kubeflow 110. And I raised an issue in the community repo for Kubeflow. Is the 740 you see in the meeting notes. So to anyone who'd like to volunteer to be part of the release team, feel free to do so. Just add a comment in the community issue, and we'll be working on having you on board to that team. Um, one of the only requirement that needs to accomplish to be part of the release team is to be part of the Kubeflow GitHub org, but I believe we can work on having you on board as soon as possible. As for now, we have a low number of volunteers, so please, for anyone who knows someone who'd like to contribute on a very good um, and active open source project, just reach me out and I'll have this person on board as soon as possible. For now, I would say we're kind of yellow because we have a very low number of volunteers. So please, if you know anyone or if you'd like to volunteer, please send me a message. I'll keep you posted on how you can onboard on the next release team. Still working on who will be the next release manager and the next product manager. These two roles are also very important, but for this 110 release, we want to do something different. We want to shadow these two roles. Actually, only the release manager and the product manager was still looking for someone with any skills with product management who could work, help with us. But if you don't, again, just send me a message. We can find a place for you in the next release team. Um, Last thing, if you are unsure what are the available roles for the release manager, please take a look at the release handbook. There are all of the available roles, descriptions, and details on their responsibilities. Guess that's it for 191 and 110. So for any questions or comments, feel free to post it now. Floor is open.
So I posted, that we were looking for a release manager for 110 on LinkedIn, and I got about 7 or 8 people who expressed interest. And most of them are folks who do not have experience in the Kubeflow community yet, or have done a few items beforehand. But they're interested, and I know, Ricardo, you came into this kind of relatively new to Kubeflow, I guess, from the release management standpoint. People are asking me 2 questions. How much can we break the rules on the requirements, and how much time does it take? So I thought I might introduce them to you, but since I have you on the line here, can you give us any idea of like how much work you had to spend, like at hours per week or something? And how you felt about our documentation, and how the process was, as a first timer going through.
Yeah, sure. Of course, the release manager is acting like the central piece of the release team because it's the one that will sync all of the work for all of the working groups. I would say the most important thing, and that's a high recommendation for myself for the next release manager, um, rely on the working group liaisons to get updates for each working group. Other than that, all you need to do is commit yourself to be always active in the release team meetings and the Kubeflow community meetings. Other than that, it's just, one another ping from the working group liaisons asking for help to how to proceed with some specific tasks, right? I would say the development phase is the most lightest. It's the most lightest of the phases for the release manager because it's pretty much the developers are working on the features and bug fixes and so on. After the feature freeze, it's where you have to be more involved, but it doesn't take more than 6 hours a week, I would say. So it's pretty much coordinate the release candidates, work with the distributions, coordinate with distributions, the testing, work with the Julius as the platform working group or the working group liaison to get the manifest updated. And that's pretty much it for the release manager role. The product manager will probably work a little more, but not much than that. So having a good coordination between the release manager and the product manager, things won't take much than just 6 or 7 hours a week for both roles. Um, that's what I can say about it. As for experience, it would be great to have some good experience with that, but it's not a requirement. Like I said, the only requirement is to be part of the GitHub org in Kubeflow. Other than that, all of the roles are free to any volunteers um, to take that role.
One last question before I go to Ramesh. Sorry, Ramesh, I'm going to give you the floor here in a sec. Did you learn more about the people in the community, or did you learn more about the technology?
I would say both. Um, Now I know who are the key contacts for each working group. I can understand more the big picture of the Kubeflow platform. Uh, I would say I learned a lot of the Kubeflow platform acting as the release manager. Of course, I was working in the past only on the pipeline side, but when you get involved in the release team, in the release cycles, you can learn a lot more than just one specific component or another one. So yeah, I would say I learned both the team and the technologies behind Kubeflow.
Well, that's great. I hope that investment was valuable for you and pays off in the future as you go forward.
Indeed.
Ramesh, how can I help you?
Oh, first of all, thank you for Ricardo for doing the excellent job on 1.9. The only one question I had was, did we already establish any timelines for the 1.10? I'm just wondering about that. Those conversations may have happened in the release team meetings. So anybody can give me any input on it.
Yeah, I think we've kind of aimed for February. But, it's open depending on what needs to be put in there. I tried to push people to do something for KubeCon, which would be November. That would be a very quick turnaround.
Right.
But if we can get something done by February, maybe we'd get 2 releases next year.
Right. So February 1, probably towards the end of the year, is another one.
And what would be nice is, if we could do a February and then a November next year, or something like that, and perhaps we could get Kubeflow in a place where it's almost ready to graduate from the CNC.
In the end of next year, you mean, there, Josh?
Perhaps, potentially, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, that would be a goal. I'm not saying it's the only one, but that would be a potential North Star for quality and everything else that we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. I'm trying to see, what when as a component teams, when we need to have, depending upon the dates, when we need to have our 1.10 ironed out, to commit to what we are going to deliver.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think that looking at the model registry in particular, right, I think that's an important component, especially if we look at what happens to the model registry over the next 2 releases. By the end of 2025, I think we would see that component mature to highly functional at that point, I hope.
Yep. We hope so too.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're getting traction, we're getting feedback, but that would be a really good goal, just to have that be, centerpiece of what people use and know Kubeflow for.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll do.
All
That's
right.
all I have.
Oh, go ahead. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Anybody else that would like to either talk about 191, 110?
I'm good.
All righty. Let's keep moving along then. Matteo, need James Wu or James Liu to move video.
Yes, thank you, Josh. Actually, I see that maybe we have one of the James connected. This is a kind request because as we discussed in previous community meetings, typically we reflected the release video in the Kubeflow YouTube main channel, not the Kubeflow community YouTube channel. So my understanding from Andre is that either of those 2 James are the people who typically help us to have the video in the YouTube Kubeflow main channel. So if that is possible, please to follow up on this request. It will be greatly appreciated. I shared the original video on a sharing website. So the file can be downloaded in full resolution, plus as well the title, plus as well the chapters. So it's just a matter simply because I don't have the authorization for the YouTube main channel. And at the same time, if the grant can be given to Matthew Weeks, who has helped us for the Kubeflow community channel to make it into a branded account. So if Matthew Weeks can be made either Matthew or as well today with the names. Sorry, just one second. Amber. So if both Amber and Matthew can be made like a YouTube administrator for the Kubeflow YouTube main channel, that will be appreciated so that we can be more autonomous in the future.
Yeah, this would be great. I mean, look, a lot of work went into getting this video completed. It should be posted. We need to get it up and get it exposed. So any help there people can provide, that would be great.
Okay, thanks. I'll respond on the Slack channel.
Perfect. Thank you, James.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Okay, anything else on YouTube's? All right. How about Trusty AI progress?
Right. I'll take that and I'll probably pass it on to Rui, who is also in the meeting there, James. So we did try to send a Kubeflow discussion thread, but at least I have not gotten I don't know whether there is any moderation needs to be done. At least I have not seen it in my email, but when I go to the Google groups, I see the email there. I don't know. It's the same thing for the others. Whether they got the email or not, I wanted to check on that. If you have seen an email on the Trusty AI in the last 1 week, I think that's one. And I also wanted to see what can we do to keep progressing on there. Especially, I'm little my questioning on the 1.10 timelines is also related with that. If we need to, if we are going to be part of Kubeflow, I would love to this become at least a initial part of it is coming in 1.10. So I mean, as time is very short here, uh, before the release team start prepping towards the futures and stuff, I think there is a lot of groundwork we need to cover if at all we are going in that route. So uh, any any uh, any suggestions or any guidance on this one is very much appreciated. Um, I don't know, Rui, if you want to add anything to that.
Thanks very much. No, I mean, just from the Trusty AI, sorry, from the Trusty AI part, we've been working on putting a little bit more flesh in our use cases and also fleshing out some of the integrations that we propose, which could be expanded from the original proposal. But that's pretty much all the update I have.
Just one new project we are also looking in there, just not to steal through his thunder, is evaluating is something towards called guardrails. So we want to bring in that technology and how we can integrate our existing stuff. If you want to say anything on that, Rui.
Yeah, so Trust AI is working on two new features. So one of them is the LM evaluation harness, and the other one is guardrails. And for guardrails, so Trust AI will provide the ability to use custom models to create chunking and to create token scoring for guardrail purposes. So this is something that will be integrated directly into Trustee AI, but with the ability to use custom chunkers and custom evaluators. And yeah, so mostly those are two features which are actively working on, and that should appear soon upstream.
Do those, so just a personal question here, do those have APIs that third-party applications could query how how models are doing on guardrail violations?
Yeah, so that's the objective, yes, to provide APIs so that, yeah, so we could potentially extract any kind of metric that we want regarding guardrail violations. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, very interesting. Okay, that seems very valuable to me, and even to a project I'm working on. So I kind of like to hear that. Is there a link to any of that guardrail work, or is that just in part of the Trusty AI? If I go there, will I find the Rails stuff?
So for the guardrails part in upstream, there's still not a big presence there. So we're still in the process of actually putting the code upstream. But for the evaluation harness, we're actually conducting the work already on a development branch, which, yeah, I can put the link up afterwards on chat or on the document.
Perfect. I think this is a valuable work effort, and I appreciate you bringing it up. And I hope that others who are working in this space also see the challenges that people, a lot of literature on how do I keep things in control, or at least know when they go off the rails, so to speak. Hey,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
oh, go ahead.
sorry, no. I was just going to say these two are high priority features for Trustee AI as well. Yeah, so thanks, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to see more community discussion on this. I think that topics like this are probably, I'm just going to throw it out there, is that it's what you think it's going to be and what it is after you develop it tend to be two different things. And it helps to have end users give feedback. So, I don't know if there's a chance that, like, especially on the Rails stuff, some point you could give us a 5-minute update of what you're thinking about, or give us some kind of view of what's going on, maybe a little bit deeper dive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't prepare anything for
Yeah.
today, unfortunately, but for next meeting, definitely yes.
Okay. All right. So this comes to kind of like this next topic, Trusty AI and the Rails and the whole thing. Sorry, guardrails. I shouldn't say the whole word. Kind of the process to add projects to Kubeflow, which personally was a little negligent on developing. But I thought about it, and Francisco did a lot of the work. And we have a PR here kind of to outline some ideas. I'm going to bring it up real quick. I don't know if this one comes up as well. It may be not as easy to see, and the files changed. I don't know. But the idea here is that perhaps, there's a bunch of information that might need to be collected so that the steering committee and others could potentially make a decision on a project that's being submitted. And so what I was trying to get to is, not real excited about making people fill out a bunch of forms or information, but you can see there's probably some information here that would help us. I tried to make with Francisco some of these things like the metrics, I don't know if you can see this, but the number of contributors and users and pull requests and stuff like that kind of checkbox. So you don't have to, write out a real long set of answers, but the idea here would be that we try to collect information on some of these projects and then allow the steering committee and the community to kind of go through and look at these answers and have some, lack of a better word, standardize or some type of open process to perhaps evaluate and decide whether we want to add projects into Kubeflow. This brings up a question, and I don't know if it looks like we have some time on the calendar, so I'm just going to ask it for some open discussion. There are folks inside, and I think it's a legitimate concern from Kubeflow that we need to concentrate on certain things like the core components and make them really, really, really strong. And there's another faction within Kubeflow that is kind of like, hey, these new software projects are adding a lot of new energy and new contributors and new people, and this is a good way to build out value and grow the community. So there's two kind of different views of which way we should go. And maybe there's more. But I think everyone can appreciate how hard it is to deliver a project with a lot of different software components. So I'd like people to think about those two visions, and maybe, I don't know, we want to have comment on it now, but maybe we can spend 10 minutes taking comments, something like that, if we have that many comments. But also for people to think about, how do we retain quality if we're going to grow the community? And how, especially as the test sequence and the documentation sequence grows on every release. Any comments there? Any thoughts? Ramesh?
So the very first thing that popped into my mind there, James, is Josh, I'm sorry. Is whether we are wanting to be a platform for a base platform for the distributions, or a platform to be for the end users, right? I think if we have that may be subject to discussion on its own there. I think that will direct whether we want to focus more on our core and not say necessarily ignore, but give less preference on the add-on versus if we are trying to be a end user deployable platform in much respects, then these things kind of give more value. I mean, bring more value to the community, in my opinion. But what you raise is a legitimate concerns in terms of how we are going to maintain the quality as well as supportability of these things in a long term. So it definitely needs to be thought out when we are bringing in new projects.
Yeah, I have a kind of a belief that as long as we have a cradle to grave type of process, and if components start to fall off and they can be archived effectively, then great. But as most of us have seen, and I think James and others have spent a lot of time archiving stuff from the past recently, and we've tried to continue to clean up, and the documentation has made great strides. I'm just, I don't know, maybe some of the veterans here, James Wu or others, folks that have been around a while, do you guys have any opinions here that would, help people kind of use your wisdom from the past, what things we've tried and have worked and haven't worked? Any opinions?
So I can give my opinion, James. Do you want to go first? No, please go. Yeah, so from my perspective, as Josh said, I think first of all, we need to focus on the core. And I think we need to answer the question, what specific problem we're trying to solve within the community, right? Within the, ML and cloud ecosystem. What actually the purpose of Kubeflow, right? Are we trying to give people a way to train LLMs? Are we trying to give people the way to build ML pipelines? Are we building interactive ID? Are we building the inference components, right? So as we as a community should first of all answer the question, what is the purpose of Kubeflow for end users, rather than growing the scope extremely fast and trying to solve all the problems for all the distributions. Because my perspective, we couldn't actually build the state-of-the-art ML platform for all of the people across the globe, right? Because they already have mature systems. Google has Vertex AI, Amazon has SageMaker, Azure has Azure ML, right? Like Red Hat's OpenShift, right? So there is no way for us to compete with those people, with those users. However, we can provide the bridge and the set of core components for people who want to do ML, who want to integrate those components in their existing platforms. Which means, from my personal perspective, we as a community should not invest time in the platform aspect of Kubeflow, where it is multi-tenancy, OIDC isolation, and other parts. But I agree that for some users it might be useful. But the question where we should invest our energy, it's maybe the thing we need to answer first, and focusing on the core, right? Rather than growing our scope. Yeah. James, what are your thoughts? Go ahead. I think in general I agree, but I wanna maybe bring up one more point, which is I think there is probably in this time of everyone trying to, I guess, be part of generative AI. I do think this is a direction that we should invest some energy into, investigating or thinking about how Kubeflow as a platform is relevant, right, in the Gen AI world. Yeah, I agree with focusing on core, but Gen AI is such a big thing that I think if we don't spend the energy of thinking about it, there's probably a very big opportunity lost. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I kind of agree. I mean, transition towards LLM ops for us makes sense as a direction. The question is how we're going to cover the still traditional, people who do traditional ML, right? And the people still need to utilize the Kubernetes infrastructure. But yes, we still have a lot of opportunities from training to optimization to serving in terms of how to do large scale ML, right? Basically, and how to do everything in the Gen AI space. Yeah, but again, it's up to the point back to that we should be focusing on actually machine learning, not infrastructure components there, because it will be really hard for us to open source, control plane, basically, if that makes sense for everyone. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I really struggle with this one, and I have my own opinions, but I don't want to sway the community. I know that when we were talking to the CNCF, when we said, we wanted to take this moniker or this kind of space, which is machine learning operations on Kubernetes, that seemed to strike a good tone and a unique value equation, being that we're the leading open source platform for that. I think we can justifiably probably say that. The problem is Kubernetes is so advanced that it's complicated, but it also gives you a lot of capabilities, and we get lost in the Kubernetes. but that's kind of our core claim to differentiation. So your points are very valid, Andre. I'm just trying to balance that with how we get lost in a lot of the Kubernetes discussions. And then all this other, to James's kind of part about the LLM and some of the other stuff that people need to do outside of what we have in core. I'm glad
Yes.
whatever way the community or the KSC wants to go, but I think that we have to coalesce somehow. And it's going to be a vital decision for us. Because we can only put so much stuff into the bag of development. Let's just say between now and 2025, the end of 2025, where we may have 2 more releases. And one of those things that we may want to think about is how do we graduate from the CNCF and all the requirements that they're going to drop onto us? How much more do we get to do and still not have blog posts that say we fixed, 47 documentation and security issues?
So, I mean, I think if we, back to the point around like new projects, I think we still need to have conformance, right? I mean, if we as a community want to establish the platform piece of the Kubeflow, we still need to have the conformance program, right? To basically explain what, how it can be a distribution of Kubeflow, right? Which piece of Kubeflow you should, like validate in your infrastructure, right? Which means we have to have the conformance program, like if we still decide to make those Kubeflow releases, right? Right?
Yeah, and I think the challenge with the conformance program, and James spent a huge amount of time on this, was it's a tax. Right? It basically, you've got to design it, implement it, and then somebody's got to run it and validate that people have gone through it. I think it's a great thing to have, but yeah, I mean, that is a good vision. Look, we have a conformant CNCF graduated core set of components that are very tight. That's a good vision, right? By the end of 2025. Or we have this sprawling set of stuff that continues to add more people and is, maybe overly welcoming and says, come one, come all. Let's try to keep in touch and bring people in. And I mean, both visions I think have some merit, and both visions have some limitation, and we're just going to have to pick.
I mean, isn't it driven to some degree just by business needs? For example, of the for example, KTEP, probably they were just developing what the most contributor companies need. I mean, we won't just get some free spare time from developers, but most people will just work based on what they need themselves.
Yeah, this is the unfortunate problem of not enough diversity in contributions for every project we have in Kubeflow, right? Yes, some project has diversity and some project have a different opinions, but some of them not have a lot, right? But usually for every project we should go through like the voting system and submission across all the key members within this project or within this working group. That is why the working group, each working group, must have more than a single company who in the leads, right? Because eventually all of the features should go through the proposal and should go through the approval, and we should follow this across all the Kubeflow project. If we want to make it the same as what Kubernetes, for example, is doing, right? You cannot push any changes that, for example, your company X want to have, right? You have to go through the cap, and cap takes time. And the feature, when it be in GA, it might take like, a year to implement. So we should do the same for Kubeflow. But the problem is with the new project, for example, right? They right now don't have a lot of, adoption and diversity, and it's hard for them to go through all this process, right? But eventually, like the people who are maintaining the project, they should spend time to, find contributors and grow the development base, right, across multiple companies.
Yes, but even then, those multiple companies, they will still have the interest of multiple companies in mind. So yes, there will be an improvement process and all of this, but in the end, they will probably primarily work or create PRs with the proper review and proposal process of stuff they are interested in. Probably they will not be paid to do some stuff that they're completely uninterested in.
Yeah, that makes sense. But this is how open source works, right? In every community, right? Like sometimes if you want to be part of a community, you have to, spend your energy on the parts which your business doesn't want, right? Take a look at Jupyter, take a look at Kubernetes, right? So some folks they usually work in other parts of the project which is not actually related to their business, right? Maybe it's CI/CD, maybe it's release, maybe it's like community meetings. All this, takes time, and they're still investing their energy and to be part of this, right? To show their visibility. So eventually we should have the same process across all the projects within the Kubeflow, right?
Yes,
yeah.
That's definitely a goal. Yeah, I'm just not sure how many. I mean, I also have to spend quite a lot of my own free time on this, but I'm not sure how many people will be willing to do so. This is why I mean, the manifesting platform. This is the quite interesting for enterprises, so that's why it has some backing, for example.
So we spent a little more time on this, which is good. Here's kind of what I'd like to do, because we have another topic to touch on, is propose a path forward. And I think the path forward perhaps is that the KSC, the Kubeflow Steering Committee, needs to evaluate this and come back with a proposal to the community of what they think the right, and then get the community's kind of feedback on it. And make sure that we're, as close to aligned. I don't think that everybody's going to be aligned with whatever path we pick, but what we do need to do is pick a path and just go with it, right? It's kind of my opinion, because, it will help the trusty AI people, it will help the feast people, it will help the Ray people know what our intentions are, where the boundaries are, and how we, and the CNCF know where we're going, as well as the end users, right? Probably the most important part. So Andre, James, I'm going to put this as a to-do for the steering committee to get back to the community. We're going to have to vote, pick a direction, and just, that'll be whatever we choose, right? So that's fine.
I think the important point, Josh, we should mention about the CNCF. So we're still exploring this from our side, right? We cannot just grow the project until we find the direction from the foundation, right?
This is a good point. We're little Wild Westing at this point, where, we probably have some process that we need to work with the CNCF on accepting software, but
yeah, I think it's a good thing for community to know, like it's not us, like, blocking this process. Like we need to, have a clear guidance from, upper foundation right now we are in, right? So let's definitely have a discussion about this.
Okay, well, Ramesh, go ahead.
So also going back to James' comment there, Josh, about the LLM-based view of it, I would love to see a discussion in this meeting or somewhere to see how, I mean, even though if you pick it, I mean, it seems like that's a um, popular direction where the industry is going. I mean, if we do go that route, what might it look like? I'm not saying that we are going to go that route, yes or no, but hey, what does that mean for us, right? Maybe a just like a discussion like this would be really helpful to see a little bit ahead as to how we would need to change, or if that it does require a change. Uh, that's one of suggestion I have to have that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we have done a pretty good job as a community of just letting the working groups lead where the community was going, and kind of we did not do a top down. We let the bottom up kind of run, and that's the way that Google had set the community up to begin with, was that the contributors kind of decide where they want to go, kind of to Julius's point. People work on what they want. In some ways, that's led to, different types of UIs and other inconsistencies that people might say, okay, if we would have been a little more strict at the top, maybe it would look more cohesive. But I think we've done a pretty good job up to now, and I think we've held pretty good quality, and we've got a decent user base. So I do think that this vision of where we end up needs to be laid out, and there's going to be differences of opinion, and we just need to figure out a way to manage through that, right? So it's okay. Let's see how that goes.
Sorry, just last thing on the Ramesh point. I would love to, from other working groups, to see some direction on, on LLMs. For example, like from the training side, right? We're doing the significant revamp to simplify LLM runtimes and how people do the fine tuning, right? So I would love to see some directions from other folks within ML scope, what exactly they're looking for. For example, like Ksurf, right? They recently started this multi-host proposal, right? To be able to serve like, models on the multiple, nodes, right? Which cannot like, utilize in a single node, right? So we definitely need to spend time on this, and I hope that is why, again, we need some guidance from working group and their direction, where they're going, and maybe we can work together to see in this space how we should move forward, right? Because there are other parts, right? Not only training and serving, right? As I think we discussed a little bit about this with Francisco last time, about the feature store as well, right? Which needs to be adopted, right? So love to learn more, right? Josh, I think we can move on.
Okay, well, I know that was unscripted, and I hope people appreciate we're trying to be as open as possible. Matteo, refresh, working group data PR with latest comments. There was like a ton of updates in my inbox today. So what's happening here?
So actually, this is a part of kind of like a time loose ends that with the Kubeflow 1.9 for modern registry, I was kind of like leaving a bit behind. This is one of the things that I've tried to revamp and to follow up on comments that I received actually throughout a number of weeks. So this was an old, kind of like an oldish pull request to create the data working group. I think that also this given us time to actually consolidate on some of the things that are mentioned in the pull request. So the PR, as it stands right now, I believe that I've addressed every single specific comment that I've received in that PR. And what I also did is that for some of the comments, I consolidated them in a single commit so that I can remove it in case needed. I think that this pull request is kind of like is good for to be reviewed and evaluated. What I believe is an answer that now needs to happen is partially related to the discussion that we were having earlier, is that whether Feast kind of like a addition here is meaningful to have it as part of this working group or not. And either way, I think that also Andre offline had mentioned about this. So to me, it's fine either way. What I would like to know is that I've tried to do my best as to serve as the steward for these pull requests by really be receptive of all the feedback that I received. So now the decision point is whether to incorporate the fees as part of this pull request or in a subsequent one, as Andre was mentioning. And I'm happy to execute either way.
Thank you, Matteo. Josh, any comments from your side, or James, what do you think about Feast under data working group?
I'm always for, I'm a proponent of Feast, so I'm whatever we can do to get Feast into the community, I'm kind of bullish on that. I may not understand all the implications of putting Feast in the working group data. So I'm glad to defer to others if that's not the right place for it. But it seems like it would fit there if we were going to put it somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. My only question is like, when in that case, we need to change the working group governments, right? Because the government says like the components which is under Kubeflow can be maintained by the working groups, right?
Oh, I get it. So you're saying because Feast is not part of Kubeflow at this point.
Yes. Yeah, my only concern, I'm happy to include fees there, but like we need to make it official, right? And the working groups was designed to maintain the components under the Kubeflow ecosystem. The Kserve is exception because working group serving was established before Kserve move out from the Kubeflow, right?
Right. Other opinions? Anybody have any, is there any half pregnant place that we can do something, or do we have to go through? Because now we have go ahead.
Yeah, one way that that maybe is approach for both problems of new onboarding new projects on the Kubeflow is that Apache, that I have some experience, they have a process called incubation for new projects. So you can put a project in a incubation stage, and the project, in order to be promoted and graduated to become a project, can be have to have community, have to have a working group, have to have multiple companies participating, and this could be beneficial. And even I don't know if you can establish a process like this one for things like Feast. And I don't know, I'm not I have context if this was discussed to include Feast on Kubeflow at some point or not. Feast will be independent.
Yeah, I think this is still under discussion, right? With Francisco and other folks.
Okay, well, we've spent an hour. Look, I don't know if this was the most productive use of all our time, but I do want to make these decisions in open. I want to give people time to comment. and we didn't have a lot on the agenda today. So I think the feedback that we got today was good. I'd like to see, you know, us get to a place where we can help these projects along, and we can help Kubeflow along, right? Because I think they all kind of add value, even if we end up at an arm's length relationship, maybe there's still a win-win here. But whatever the ending solution is for these things, I want to make sure that everyone's treated fairly and you know, as openly as possible. So I hope you guys can appreciate that, and let's see where we go from here. Anything else that anybody has before we close out today? I also want to say that, you know, look, I know I didn't have a good agenda, you know, a great preset agenda today. I know some folks say that they want to take over running this meeting. If anybody feels like, you know, hey, I got to get something on the agenda, or you have some plan, please help. You know, please feel free to drop some stuff on. I know that we have a lot of tactical stuff that we do, but I really like these discussions, like the LLM guardrails and other types of things. If you have good ideas like that, even if you're not super prepared and you just think you can have a discussion around it, please think about adding them into the agenda. I think it's helpful for us to share. All right. Anything else before we close? All right. I hope this was useful. Take care, everyone.